Hi guys, welcome to today's episode of the Second Nature podcast. As you can see, today we're in a different kind of setting. We wanted to try something different. But yeah, so this is kind of part two of the What Should Christians Do About Racism and Colorism episode. It was very, very, very popular, and we just thought that there was a lot that wasn't said and a lot that we could expand on for you guys. So we just thought we'd do a part two. And we've got our lovely guest back again. I don't know where you guys are on everyone, but you guys are like here on my screen, but I don't know where you'd be in the recording. But yeah, so obviously this week has been very, 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 very emotionally hard, I'd say, for I guess a lot of kind of Black and just Black people in general, and obviously with the whole George Floyd situation. And this is coming after the Mont Aubrey situation, and then the whole what her name escapes me.
Amy Cooper.
Oh yeah, Amy Cooper situation as well. So we've had these all kind of happen in the space of less than 3 weeks, and many more cases obviously over the space of this whole year, the last decade. I mean, we can go on. So I guess one thing we just kind of let's touch upon is the most recent cases, the George Floyd case, which obviously has caused loads of protests. Not just in the US, but also in the UK, in Europe in general, Berlin, France, Spain, all over the place. So what are people's thoughts and stuff on it?
So for me, the George Floyd thing was actually second after the Amy Cooper. So the Amy Cooper incident is what exasperated the George Floyd thing even more, because what Amy Cooper tried to do to the fellow that was recording her was essentially what was going to happen to George Floyd. I think Chris Cooper.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so what Amy Cooper was trying to do by calling the police and filing a false report is essentially get the police out to him, which is what happened to George Floyd, and he was killed for it. So she weaponized her whiteness essentially, and then we see it the next day on film for a good 9 to 10 minutes. And it's just so sad. Yeah, I couldn't even watch the full video. I had to skip the parts, but because when I originally watched it, I assumed that they were just going to put him in the car. But then as you continue watching it, you just see that he just doesn't move at all. And then you see the life just like drain out of his eyes, and he's just gone. And you're thinking, this can't be real. This has to be fake. But yeah, that's what I've had to say about it.
Yeah. I think it has, it's been really heavy for a lot of people, and especially Black people, because at the end of the day, Black people are seeing what potentially could happen to them, and it's horrendous. I think on top of everything that you've just said, I find it really sad that it has to take a video like that to wake people up. I do feel like there's a real shift with a lot of people. There's some sort of awakening happening within the church. And it's very different to what it's been before. Now, I'm not saying that I don't know what this means, but it does feel different. But I think we have to remind people that there has been years of police brutality, innocent Black people's lives being taken on the street in the US and the UK, and so many Black lives have been wiped and taken from the white hand. And the fact that it's had to take seeing someone dying to do something makes me sad as well, even though it's good. It has positives to it because it has made it more aware, but it does make me sad. And what I find is a lot of people are conformists, so they jump on the social bandwagon, and especially when things are hyped, So people are sharing the George Floyd hashtag, and there's people that I've never seen do that before, you know, and I'm like, whoa, where have you come from? I've never
Where
heard you
you
speak
been?
about
I
lives.
seen you
Where have
around
you
here.
been? Exactly, you know. And yes, it is a good thing. But I think the question here and why we wanted to do this podcast is, how do you take action? Because we can all share, we can all repost, we can all press that little arrow, but what are we actually doing? And so for me, I think that's why it's so important to speak now, and put that into practice. So yeah,
true.
kind of.
Yeah.
Jasmine?
Yeah, I think of what you guys are saying, really. I know, you know, I think we all share the same sentiments of how it's made everybody feel, and the fact that I think we have reached a tipping point. I don't think there's, you know, there's a link to the fact that this happened in COVID. We're on lockdown. These things have happened before, even the exact words, "I can't breathe," Eric Garner, how many years ago now? The fact that those exact words were repeated, but it's almost like we're hearing them differently now. Maybe not us personally, because maybe we heard it then, but I definitely think, as Nat pointed out, this shift, this urgency from white people to want to know more, to want to know how they can help. That's been my experience this week, and I know, again, like I said last time, we're all going to have had different experiences in this week. And that was why I'm really keen to do this second podcast, to kind of keep the conversation going and see what calls to action that we can actually be doing. Because as Nat said, it is amazing to post, because that is raising awareness, that's marketing, that's advertising, that's everything. It's putting it out there. But then it's like, for the normal person, and this is what my aunt said to me, she said she wants to know, for the average person who isn't an activist, who this isn't their work, what can they do? Even if it's small things. Because some people are looking after 3-4 kids and working, but they still want to help. So I'm hoping between the 4 of us, we'll have some steps that people can take, that's practical tools. So, you know, I think it is a point where people do want to see action, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Where I'm at.
I think for me, well, before I started recording, Natalie was asking me what the reception of the first episode was like. And some of my friends actually thought that we timed the episode with the incident of what was going on. But as I told them, racism is happening all the time, so we don't need to time it. Because whenever we talk about it, there's always something happening. And when the episode dropped on Monday and we've seen the Amy Cooper video on Sunday, I was just like, oh, here we go again. It's always like something new every week. And you're just wondering, especially in the church and in Christianity, when are we going to actually take a strong stance for the injustice that's going on?
Exactly.
Like, part of me sometimes thinks, if you're not Christian, I can see why you would be flip-floppy about it and you wouldn't know what to do. But if you're Christian, like, come on, there is definitely things that you can do. You serve a just God, you serve a sovereign God, you serve a God who wouldn't want to see what was going on to the body happening without people wanting to help as well. So it's just like, there's a majority of people, especially white Christians or Christians of other races that aren't black, that have been silent for too long. And when we get white Christian leaders who speak out, it's always the same people. And it'll come to a point where it can't be the same people anymore. It has to be a collective thing, because there's only so much they can do to break down the systemic issue. It's not really up to us to break it down, because we're the ones that are a victim of it. We're the ones that have been screaming about it for decades, for hundreds of years, and nothing has changed. People say things are getting better, or are things just better covertly done? I'm not sure. Because at any moment in time, something could happen to me, something could happen to all of us, and we'd become another hashtag, and people would love to jump on the social bandwagon of making us a hashtag, but then it just leaves it there. So yeah.
I feel like it's almost lazy to say things are getting better though.
Yeah.
The fact that there have been one charge, 3rd-degree murder.
It's lazy.
Then what their president has said, it's lazy. The church was the last ones behind this yet again. And yes, people have said stuff, but I'm not going to call out names, but there was a few people who are, you know, up here, really well known, well respected in the Christian space. And it was only after I noticed one of my leaders, Ben, I will call out his name, Ben Lindsay, he tweeted about, you know, the silence is deafening here. And then I start seeing people, and you know what? It's almost like we can't keep going, oh, well, you have to be, there has to be a chance when we even have to let our ego down a little bit, and, you know, but at the same time, it's like, oh, come on, guys, we should be the first ones leading on this.
Yeah.
We should not be the ones behind, because otherwise what happens is the way of the world does their thing, and then we're kind of scrambling behind, catching up.
Them, yeah.
We should be leading so that people are like, these Christians got a hand on this. I need to be over there, because they know what they're doing.
That's so good.
Not actually, I don't want to be over there, because I know to this morning, including Natalie, I have loads, you know, I have friends close to me, aside from that, who are really upset with their church service this morning. Really upset.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's sad that we're seeing it dismantle, and this is what the enemy would love. And it's frustrating that people find it so hard to put words to something that to me is just so simple. And another thing, I don't know if anyone would be listening, but we just need to also alliterate the whole hashtag All Lives Matter. Let's just get rid of that. Like, that's I'm white passing, and I'm so glad we've done it in this way so people can see my skin tone. I'm just as tired as you guys, and it upsets me just as much. I've even had to say to God, listen, you've got to try and hold me together, and I don't want to cry today. I've done enough crying today. But I'm white passing, so even there's an element of that's on my shoulders where I need to keep talking about this stuff in a certain way that my darker skinned sisters, they need to just take a rest. And so it's just, the whole thing about getting better, I just think, let's not be lazy about this. Let's just call it what it's not getting better. Racism isn't even getting worse, it's getting filmed. As that tweet said, I can't remember the original, maybe it was Will Smith.
Will Smith,
sure.
yeah. Or Jack from Love Island, but I was under duress, so.
but that's where we're at right now. And, you know, I don't want to do too much unpacking of this stuff. I want us to give people who are listening more actions and things that they can do with this information. I just want us to be really clear that none of this is getting better. The fact that the fact that I had to write on my branded platform today, my handwriting, I had to write out Black Lives Matter. I thought, is this a joke that I'm writing? I'm having to excuse why I can't post today because I'm done today. I can't pick you guys up today. It's insane that this is where we're at. I even texted my head pastor today saying, thank you for acknowledging George Floyd's name. And I said, that might sound strange to you, but I know there's a lot of churches that are just skimming around the racism.
Vague tweets.
Text him and say thank you for that. Do you know how insane that is?
Yeah, exactly.
But even he said thank you. He wouldn't have even known that was a big deal. He's thinking he's saying. But I know plenty of people who go to these big churches with the big lights. They didn't say George Floyd's name this morning. It's not race, but they didn't call it what it was. And to me, it's just a waste of a sermon. It's a waste of time.
No, that's good, Yasmin.
Sorry.
Very good.
No, it's good. I just want to unpick a couple of things. I think what you're saying, Yasmin, and I just want to explain this because I think there will be people listening who don't actually understand the hashtag All Lives Matters and how problematic that is. So I just want to break that down. So first of all, it undermines the point of highlighting that Black people are being murdered.
Yeah.
It's a phrase that is coined by the far right in response to people raising Black Lives Matter. So all you're doing is reiterating white supremacy.
Yeah.
So when we are saying Black Lives Matter, we're not saying only Black Lives Matter. We're not saying other lives don't matter. We're saying there's an urgency because Black people are literally being murdered because they're Black. So when you are posting about George Floyd and you have got a hashtag Black Lives Matter, and next to it you have got All Lives Matters, there's a problem. That you have missed the mark, you've missed the point. So if you're listening now and you have that on your page, please remove it because it's offensive. Okay, it is not okay. And be grateful that you don't need a hashtag. Be grateful that you don't have to have your own hashtag for people to realize that you're important. And don't get offended and try and include yourself in it because you don't need to. Just respect the fact that that hashtag is important for now, and it will always be important, but it's important. So please, if you are listening, if you take something away, please just remove the hashtag because it's so offensive. And the other thing I want to say as well is that, yes, I am quite disappointed in the church at the moment. I'm not going to lie. There has been silence. I've seen churches over the last kind of month or so been praying for all different types of things. I've seen them pray for Boris Johnson when he got COVID and was sick, and gathered the church online because it does say in the Bible that we need to gather our leaders and pray for them. Brilliant, great, I get it. Okay, struggle with it, but I get it. But where are the prayer meetings for this? And I'm talking about white majority churches, like I always do, like I did last time, because that is what I know. Where are our prayer meetings? Why are we not gathering the church? Why are we not talking about it? And there was a lot of white influential church leaders who spoke out. Brilliant. But a lot of what I saw were retweets, were reposts from things that had already been written. They were 2 days too late. And I say 2 days, I think they're years too late. But in this moment, it came out 2 days later. And as a church leader, if you are listening to this, what I want to know, and I mean white church leaders, I just want to say the following. Thank you for posting, that's great. But actually what I want to know, what are you reading? What are you listening to? What courses are you taking to understand what is going on right now? What are you teaching your congregation to help people act? Those are the things I want to know. I don't want you retweeting some other Black person's post about how they're feeling. I want to know how actively you are getting involved. And that is partly why we're speaking about it now. So, sorry, that's all I've got to say on that.
No, that's so good. I think relating to the whole All Lives Matter tweet, I saw a video this morning of a white pastor actually in America, and he was like, anyone can understand why the Black Lives Matter kind of thing, like hashtag exists, and people, especially Christians, saying all lives matter, like it's just like, he was just like, are you guys insane? And he said that these are the type of people that would butt into Jesus's Sermon on the Mount when he says blessed are the poor, and they'll be like, no, actually Jesus, no, blessed are all men. But it's like, no, that's not Jesus's point. Blessed are the poor, because in that moment they are the ones who need help, who need aid. Like, Jesus, you know what I mean? So it's just like these kind of people would also argue against stuff that Jesus said. So it's going back to the basics, like fundamentals, things that knowledge that people are lacking, just indoctrinated from young, that we need to kind of break down. So yeah, that's what I would add.
Yeah, another thing that he actually said was focusing and highlighting one issue doesn't disparage another issue.
Yeah.
And that's what people keep getting confused. It's like, if we focus on this, well, what about everything else? Well, for too long, we've been putting off police brutality, the issue of racism. If we ignore it, racism isn't going to go away. I don't understand why people keep saying, take the high road, it's going to go away, it's going to be okay. No, that's not how racism works. And the gospel in itself is like a reconciling message. God is a reconciling God. So when we say this, if you have the gospel and if you have it in your heart, if you read the word and you see what's going on and you just like have a blind eye to it, then what are you really, really doing? Like, how are you trying to understand, truly understand? How are you educating yourself? So this will be one of the first things that people can do. Education. So try to understand the other viewpoint. Try to understand what's actually going on right now in society. It might be uncomfortable for you, but that has to be the case. If it's uncomfortable, so be it. You are always going to have troubles in this world anyway. And if you're truly a Christian, you know, God will give you that peace. And you'll probably be shocked at the systematic issues that people of color, no, I don't like that term, Black people face. And what's going on. That means having conversations with people in your friendship group, other white people. When someone's making a joke, you don't just let it slide. You actually address it there and then. It's not enough for us to eat together, maybe work together, do this and that together. But then years down the line, you have a child and you be like, no, you can't marry that race. Like, that in itself is stupid. So, yeah, guys, education is definitely one of the first things that people need to be doing.
And there is plenty of resources.
Yeah.
There are actually courses that you can take. I think it would be really useful, guys. I'll give you guys, like, I know you guys may have some resources as well, but even if we just leave links, I'll make sure that you guys have the links that I know for sure. But even off the top of my head, like Instagram, people are using social media all the time. Like, you've got Black Coffee with White Friends. That started by, is her name Marcia, right? I think so, and I really hope I haven't got that wrong. God forgive me if I have. And that's a space where, you know, Black Coffee with White Friends is a space for white people to come and ask their questions, to come and speak and hold the space. You've got Black Vision Collective, you've got United Freedom, Until Freedom, Sean King. Now, Sean King's page is a very, it comes with a trigger warning. And it's a page that you might even want to have on mute so that you can say to myself, I'm going to go on Sean King's page today and catch up on what's really going on. Because there's police brutality and nothing's hidden, nothing's filtered. It is what it is. But they're just 4 pages that I've said now, just off the top of my head that I'm thinking now, and there's so many more. But this is free platforms. Some of this stuff you're getting is for free. I had a friend today, bless her, she bought me a book on race that I haven't read yet. And I said, no, don't buy it for me. She said, no, I'm going to buy it for you because you're just giving out your resources for free. She's white, by the way. And she sent me a message last night saying, thank you so much for your time today, Yasmin. And I hope it wasn't too much for you. Love you. And it's like, even that capacity to notice that that conversation was probably very hard for me to have. And, but I'm having it for the sake of progression. And I don't want my friend to be, you know, if I can just point her in the right directions because she wants to do the work. But it is draining. So yeah, education. And unless you do, like, in that capacity, like I said, she's said thank you, acknowledge that probably took a lot, and love you. And that's what she said. Love you, Suzanne, because you're going to listen to this. But sometimes don't always ask your Black friend in the middle of something that has happened like this. And just be careful of, you know, because I even said to another church member from my church, a white lady, I love her to pieces. She messaged me just saying, thank you, I'm standing with you in this. Thank you for everything you're sharing right now. Thank you for your vulnerability. I want to know more, I want to do more. So which I said to her, that's fine. And if you ever want a conversation, let me know and I'll sort out the capacity for that. You know, there are ways you can speak to the closest people to you, but there is a lot of free stuff out there, guys, on the internet. So
yeah, I think that's good. I have this week experienced a lot of my white friends and white network reach out, and I've had amazing conversations where they have come into my space and wanted to see if I was all right. And then I've had conversations where I'm having people crying down the phone to me because they feel so awful, and everything in between. And I wanted to bring this kind of topic up because there are a lot of white people and some brown people who are recognising, like light-skinned people that are recognising their privilege. I'm wondering, where do I start? And it is recognising your privilege, but I think a lot of people are feeling this certain way, and we call it white fragility. And just a bit of a definition on that, it's a discomfort and defensiveness on the part of a white person when confronted by information about racial inequality and injustice. And I find a lot of people are going through that at the moment, and they're processing that. And there is a realisation of that. And there's actually, well, there's probably more ways, but there's two things that come to mind when people realise that they are a part of the problem and that they are privileged and that they do need to work out what's going on. And one is where they could get their backs up and they get defensive and they say, but I'm not actively racist. I don't go out in the street and punch people in the faces because they're black. I'm not racist. I don't say anything, so it's not my problem. And then you've got the second person who goes, yes, I feel awful. I feel awful as a white person. I feel terrible. I feel really defensive and I don't know why. And I recognise that. And that second point is the healthiest point to be in, because you can then go and work out what is going on. Because if you do not recognise that, then you can't join the conversation, because you're never going to be able to take the information in, because you're defensive, and what you want to do is hold your ground and say, no, but hang on a second. And I think when you're in that place of realising your privilege, you're in that place of realising that, yes, you are part of the system. Yes, you have contributed in one way or another. No, not everyone is equal. And yes, you need to see colour when your parents brought you up saying we're all the same and we don't see colour, and you're now having to realise I've got to undo all that. It's the big deal. And what I'm finding is a lot of people are going, everything I've learned is basically a lie. And that's a really hard place to be in, because you're suddenly going, who am I? What am I? I don't like who I am. And what then people tend to do is bombard their black or brown friends, because they want to know answers, they want to know if they're doing the right thing. But no, we have to put boundaries in place. If your black or brown friend wants to talk to you about it, great, but do not ring them asking if you've ever hurt them or upset them, or it's putting those boundaries in place, and it's acting on that. So when you realize that, social media is a great place to start. Share, do all of that, but it's not enough. Anyone can click on it. Anyone can press share. So what is it that you're doing? What are you reading? Are you learning your history? Do you understand structural racism? Are you having difficult conversations with your family members around the dinner table? Are you challenging your bosses at work around the meeting table, wondering why there's no other black or brown people in the room? Are you a boss that is only employing white people? What books are you reading to your kids? Do they have good representation? Are you a part of a church that's not calling out the leadership? What is on your church website? Are the only black or brown people poor people that you've gone to visit on a mission trip? Do you go on regular mission trips and then and when you come back you don't stand up for racial injustice? Like, what are you doing? Are you leading young people? Are you leading young people? And who have they got to look up to? Have they only got one other white youth leader in the room? Who is their representation? Who are they looking up to go, I can speak like that, I can do that? Yes, they have Jesus, but who is in the room that they can go, I can be like that person because he or she looks like me? It's not good enough. And that they are where we need to be looking. That is the starting point. It's basic. And I know it's hard. I think a lot of white people are scared because they're scared they're going to say the wrong thing, scared they're going to do the wrong thing. But with that, what I would say is, as long as we're all going to make mistakes. I've probably made 100 mistakes, even like in this podcast, of things that I probably haven't said right. But as long as you go away and learn and put it right, then you have made a difference.
Yeah.
When you are coming to someone going, oh, but no, white lives do matter and blah, blah, you're not listening to the conversation. You're not listening to the other person. So all I would say is make those mistakes, because you will, but put them right.
Yeah.
And it is scary. It's very scary. It's scary to put yourself out there. It's vulnerable, but we've had to do it our whole lives. We've had to stand in conversations and say, you can't really say that, and then feel really awkward and then think about it for the rest of the week and like you're sweating, We've had to do it. And now it's time for other people to step up. But for allies, it's time for allies to step up and step out.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think a thing that people really easily fall into is it's a lot easier for obviously people to recognize their sins in others rather than in ourselves. So like you said, the whole becomes shattered because everything that they know is a lie. And it's easy to identify white supremacy when it's overt, but you don't realize the structural implications of white supremacy in itself. And those are the kind of the damaging things that people have to deal with. So I would tell people, generally anyway, especially Christians, that you really have to stop adopting the them, those guys over there, oh, that's a them issue, or this happened to them because of the choices that they made, but rather it's an us issue. Like all of us together have to unite as the body of Christ in order to do what we need to do. But more so is the fact that because we know Black Lives Matter, we need our white counterparts, essentially, our white Christian, evangelical, who want to beg for forgiveness, which isn't enough anyway, because there's definitely, if you're going to forgive, you need to do more behind it, to do your part. Because I remember seeing a tweet where someone mentioned, because in Acts of the Apostle, when Jesus visits Saul, Jesus doesn't initially say, oh, Saul, I've forgiven you for what you've done. He asks him, why are you persecuting me? Before anything else, he asks him, why are you persecuting me? So in that same vein, you can't ask for forgiveness from your friends, but they're going to ask you, okay, but what are you doing? Because if I forgive you, that doesn't make my issue and problem go away. If Jesus forgave Saul, that didn't mean that Saul would now turn over a new leaf and, become the super Christian that he was. No. So I would implore people to one, donate more to causes for justice, to educate yourself, and that's all I can think of from the top of my head right now. So yeah.
Even in the workplace, right? If you notice that there's not many people who are Black who are in higher paid positions, who are in leadership roles, that's in church and work. If you are an influencer and you are being asked to do something with a brand, it is really okay to pose the question, oh, how many Black people do you have? How many other peoples of different ethnic backgrounds do you have? Because I remember before when I didn't used to ask those questions, and I would show up and there was a lot of just white people. And it, especially in the fitness industry, you notice there's the same people that get used all the time. Just a certain demographic. But even as an influencer, somebody that maybe, who's listening, you can still ask those questions when you're taking on a job. If you're doing a campaign, how many other people from other backgrounds do you have on this campaign? Like, it's okay to ask that. I had a friend who did a project not long ago, and they sent her back what she had done, and she said, not enough different ethnic background people. There's not enough. It's just white. Yeah. And she actually said, nobody in this campaign looks like me. Ooh. Do better. at first they actually wasn't gonna they was just gonna send her one for her social media, and she said no, it's either you change it for everything or. And I think it's really brave to do that, but sometimes people don't even realize, again, because they can see people that look like them, so they don't actually feel out of place. So that's why I'm actually bringing it up now, because it might never have even clicked into their head. You know, you see a lot of these fast fashion, like little thing misguided. They've all posted about this, but if you actually look at their infrastructure, how many of their people inside in the actual team are Black? How many of them live in London? Like, I've got friends that work in the same industry, and it's even that. When you are in if you are, use your closeness. If you are white or passing white, use that. Ask questions. If you were in church, if you're on the leadership team, why? Like, I'm so over just seeing brown people on the worship team and the welcoming team. I'm over it. Like, even me as a mixed race woman, I want to look and be like, I could maybe do that. Or my son. I never mentioned on the last podcast, I have a 9-year-old son who is Black, and I want him to be able to look at the leadership at church and be like, I could do that.
Yeah,
I want to be that. So it's really important that we use our voices and we ask. And yeah, I think unless people have brought these things to their attention, they just go under the radar. And this is that structural kind of systematic racism, color blindness that we're talking about.
yeah.
And that's why I just want to encourage anyone who's listening who may not be using their voice in that way, but they can do it.
Yeah, because this week, what I've definitely constantly seen, and which I see every single time something like this happens, is obviously there's always a lot of Black people speaking out, and you're looking around the room and like, okay, where are the people that would actually impact a lot of people? Because unfortunately, when Black people are speaking, other Black people listen, and not necessarily white people listen. So what we need is more white people, especially white Christians, to speak out for other white Christians to be able to listen. It's not helpful when a white Christian makes a statement that is actually correct, and other white Christians say, yeah, but that statement means you're not listening to begin with. Let me just read James 2:8-9. It says, yes, indeed, it is good when you obey the royal law as found in the scriptures. Love your neighbor as yourself. But if you favor some people over others, you are committing a sin. You're guilty of breaking the law. Now, I wonder how many churches actually preach on that scripture, that if you show favorability to others more than some, not just race-wise, class-wise as well, but since we're focusing on race to begin with, like Natalie mentioned, when you went to the church in America and they didn't shake your hand, there they go again, breaking the law. And I guess some people, when they say love your neighbors as themselves, they might actually have it misconstrued, and they think, well, love other people that look like me, that think like me, and that's it. But it's a no.
I also no, you go for it, Yasmin, because you were going to say something.
Right. I just wanted to add what is unhelpful, and I'm calling out Black and brown people here as well, is that when a white person does do it. I saw it with Jessie J. She spoke about, and the thing that she actually said, because I saw the tears at first and I thought, like, like, I'm not gonna lie, I was thinking, oh damn, and that's coming from me. I'm a crier, baby. But actually, one, she's showing real emotion, but two, what she was talking about was the fact that white people weren't understanding how simple this is, and her frustration with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I spoke to my aunt about this, who also said to me last time, she was like, just so you know, side note, she said, love the podcast, needed it in her life. But she said, side note, not all white people are uncomfortable about talking about race, because I'm so sure if we had another space here, she'll be happy to have the conversation with us as well.
Yeah.
But I spoke to my auntie about it, because she was basically saying, you know, what is unhelpful then is that when you go to those comments and there's so many people critiquing and saying, oh, you shouldn't have cried, and oh, this is what I mean about white people, and it's like, well, do we want her to post or not?
Or
because,
not, yeah.
And that's where I'm just like, as a Christian especially, pray for these people who are using their platform, who are, because like I spoke in the last one about the fearful thing of worrying about getting it wrong or right, me and Nat just spoke about it as well. If somebody is white and they are coming out, whether they've got platform or not, I don't care if you've got 2 followers or 200,000, if you're speaking up, you're speaking up in real life or online, whatever. They're not always going to get it right. I'm not always going to get it right. But I think what we then don't need to do is rush the only kind of people that are actually saying something, because then it's just like, oh, well, what's the point? And how many people would see those things and think Jessie J is getting cussed out, I'm not getting involved? And that's where I just, if it's someone that you know and you can critique them in private, correct them with love. I spoke about this last time. You know, if we're going to be progressive about this, we've got to know how to, at some point, you know, this is not even just black and white. I've seen this quote saying it's not about black and white, it's about everyone against racism. But in terms of it being allies, the fact that in the UK, black people, we make up 3% and the majority is white people. We are the subordinates, they're the dominant. We actually do need them to speak up. We cannot do it by ourselves. And at the same time, someone's going to have to kneel and give over their power a bit. And this is where you see a man's heart is evil. And wants power. And that is the hardest thing to give over. And that is the truth of it. That's why we don't see a lot of black men in leadership. They'll come so far. And again, just want a disclaimer, there's nothing wrong with the worship or welcoming team, guys. There's enough room for everyone, everywhere. I just want to see more black men and women in states of leadership. So just wanted to kind of put in there, we do need to remember our ultimate goal. Because if we get too caught up in this badminton game of right and wrong, like, let's educate ourselves, but at one point we need to then move that fence and walk together towards our goal, because otherwise we're just going to be on the court forever, going back and forth, back and back, and it's never going to end. And our kids are going to have to do it, and their kids are going to have to do it, and it's never going to end. So I just wanted to kind of just plant that seed that maybe if someone hasn't delivered it well, if you can contact them, great, but actually leaving a nasty message online either isn't helping. And just see where your heart is when you're doing these things. Like, see where your heart is, what it's rooted in. That's all I wanted to say on that.
I think it's really important that people empathize and gain the ability to empathize. And if that requires you to pray to gain empathy, to feel what is going on for other people, then do so. Because a lot of people are just talking, but they're not putting their money or time where their mouth is. So if you truly want to make a change, you definitely first have to listen and empathize with what's going on. And if you believe in the God that we serve, then he truly will give you the ability to empathize with other races, and especially with the injustice that's going on. Because to a lot of people, they're definitely probably listening to this or looking at what's going on online, and they're thinking, especially here in the UK, I've already seen it, why are you so concerned with what's going on in America? It's not happening here. I'm like, I don't think you understand. The ability of it is definitely credible of happening here to any single one of us. And when we see what's happening over there, racism isn't just an American issue. It's a global issue, and it happens all over.
Can you see this? Can you see those? They look like lines, right? It just looks like lines. Those are names of black men and women who died in police custody over 20 years ago. This is not even an up-to-date list. Right?
That's wild.
Whoa.
I posted a thread yesterday, and again, it's not just about police brutality. You know, we're talking about this. The thing is, it's a systematical thing. It's institutional racism. But just so we're clear that this is a UK thing too, because the system, and if people actually deep our history about looting and who took who from what and land, and the UK have a lot to answer for, trust me. And I don't think it's an accident that we only hear about the US slavery history in school. And that's why you have to pick up a book and understand the ground that we're walking on. The fact that Ben mentions it in his book, only in 2015 did we as a collective taxpayers finish paying off the loan that bought
slaves.
The slave.
Yeah.
Which means up until 2015, anyone who paid taxes, you literally paid the compensation for those.
The slave owners,
Barclays, HSBC, I don't know off the top of my head, another bank, there's other banks, they were the slave ships, they were funding the slave ships, you know. This stuff is deep rooted in where we are. So yeah, we're seeing things in the US and it is different. They've got different gun laws to us. It's a bit, it's just different way of living there, but stuff is still happening here. And the scariest thing is, you can see it there. Malcolm X said it best when he said about progress in racism, and he said it's like having a 9-inch knife in your back and they pull it out 7 inches. You wouldn't call it progress. You need to take the knife out and heal the wound, but you can only do that. Whereas right now we're acting like there is no knife that exists. That's what we're doing. That is what's happening here. And that's the scary thing. Whatever we do not bring up to the surface cannot come to the light. It will stay in the darkness, and that's when it's almost, someone put it on Twitter earlier saying that it's so small, not small here, it's so kind of invisible here. It's almost like you wonder, is it playing tricks on it? Does it exist? Does it not? Is it my mind? And that's how it's woven into our society here. So don't ever think that it's not here, because trust me, it's here. And it's deeply woven into our everyday lives to the point where we live with it. It's not the N word. It's not getting the job. It's not police brutality, something that someone can record. It's invisible restraints that hold you back as a black person. You're walking like this if you're a white person. Even me, white person, I'm walking like this. Everyone who has darkest shade of skin, my restraints are a little bit like this, because some people do look at me and see a black woman. Yeah. But in comparison to other people, they're walking like this constantly, like you're walking against the
grain.
It's so frustrating that people don't get this, and it is here. And again, I will send you these things. There's a thread that somebody made on Twitter. I posted it on my story yesterday. I'll give it to you guys so you guys can add it to your social media and so people can see what I'm talking about right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just to add to all of that, like with the UK, me and my housemate were talking about it yesterday. We were just like, sometimes the racism in the UK hurts more, because it's like someone hurting you, but in such a sly way that you can't even report it. Like it's microaggressions. It's someone saying to you, oh, you can afford that. Oh, you live here. Oh, you went to uni here. Oh, you're studying engineering, but you lived in Peckham. Oh, okay. Like, you know, just things like that. Like it's someone touching your hair or saying that your hair is unprofessional, or saying that the way that a male has shaped his hair is unprofessional and he's excluded from school. You get what I mean? So it's they're not obvious with it. They're not blatant with it. It's looking at Grenfell and no one being charged for it, and people saying it's not a racism matter. Oh, there were illegal immigrants living in the tower. It's looking at the Windrush scandal and no one being held accountable for it, and people brushing it under the thing. Oh, you know, it was just a few people in the Conservative Party brushing it under the carpet. So it's things like that. Like no one's, and it's so annoying because so many people in the UK actually haven't seen a black person in real life. They're getting preconceived notions of black people from media. They're reading Daily Mail, they're reading The Sun, they're seeing, you know, these black people painted as thugs. I saw an article, and it was showing how, if you look at the stats in the article, it shows that white people are the highest users of like cocaine and those kind of drugs, but the picture used for the article was a bunch of black boys. And it's just like you could see that black people were actually the lowest number. And it's just like you read the article title, you see the picture, and you don't even need to read the article to already see that it's painting a narrative. And if someone didn't even read the article, they've already made that link between black people and cocaine. When if you read the stats in it, it's nothing. It's just the British media.
Was it in the Independent? Was it the Independent, Jerry?
I think it was the Guardian. That was yeah.
The Independent. Sorry, guys. Well,
yeah, no. So it's just that kind of like level of, oh, they see your name and don't give you an interview. You know, so and we were talking about, you know, diversity quotas and what the government is doing to get our foot in the door. And, you know, we're grateful for diversity quotas because, you know, some of us won't be as high up as we are if it wasn't for that. I mean, but there's more they can do, I won't lie, but they've done something. But then we were just talking about how diversity quotas don't change how white people see you. Ooh. Because they'll see you in a managerial position and be like, oh, it's because, you know, that company just needed more black managers. But we were just saying it. Either way, I'd rather be a black manager who a white person looks down on than being in the bottom ranks that a white person looks down on. At least here, I've got there is room for me to progress and get into positions where my voice can be heard. So, like. I think what we were just saying is we need to infiltrate communities. Like we need to be living in these rich areas. People need to see our faces more. People need to see us thriving, and not just see us as, I don't know, thugs or people that live in council estates, whatever. And we were talking about how the government's been knocking down a lot of council estates, and like black people or poorer people, which are usually black, have been moving out of London to like cheaper areas. And we've seen this with like Manchester 10 years ago was not as multicultural as it is now, but because of what's happened, it's so weird that like now we see people being more accepting of blackness and black culture in these cities that were don't get me wrong, they're still very much racist. Like you would sit on the bus and someone won't sit next to you because you're black, but they're seeing our faces more and they're seeing our culture more, and we are infiltrating these areas, and people are seeing that actually we're not thugs, we're not what the media shows. We are thriving, and we are what we are. And obviously there are always bad members of every community, but you can't judge us on what the kind of narrative that the media wants to push. And I think it's what I'd say to, like, I don't know, white people who maybe don't have black friends or haven't encountered black people and their culture, is to not just like make the media push this certain narrative of us, and actually learn, as you guys said, educate yourselves, learn about us and our culture and everything about us, and like try and make friends with people who are black, who are different from you, because you learn so much from people who are not like you. Likewise, black people as well. And I think one thing, interesting thing that I was reading today was Acts 17. Acts 17, I think 24. So 24, if I read it, it says, the God who made the world and everything in it. Oh, wait. Actually, let me go down further down. Sorry guys. Okay, yeah, let me go down to verse 26. So it says, from one man he made all the nations, that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands. God did this so that they would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he's not far from any one of us, that we live and move and have our being in him. And yeah, so I found this so interesting, because obviously before the kind of Tower of Babel time, all of us were, I guess, one nation, one language, one people. And then obviously that unity though was not rooted in God. It was unity rooted in us and our own desires, and that's what caused God to separate us. But it says that he did this intentionally. He marked out the boundaries of our land. He gave us nations. And one thing I just want to dispel is the word race and like racial divide is a false notion. God did not create race, he created ethnicity. If you look at that word nations, it talks about ethnos, which is ethnicity. God created Nigerians and Ghanaians and people bounded by languages and tribes and ethnicity. He did not create race. Race is something that has come up to divide us. You get what I mean? And the Bible talks about nations and nations, and God did this, you know, and it literally says that he bound the lands that we live in, and he did this intentionally. And why he did this, so that we can seek him, and in seeking him we can be united. And we see this in Acts 2, where when the Holy Spirit came down and filled the people, what did they do? They spoke in languages of other nations. People from other nations who were there could recognize them, and there was a unity. Afterwards, these people were selling their possessions so that those who were poorer and less off than them could be equal with them. So we see that this unity that we are all fighting for cannot be found anywhere else than really in Jesus. And it says that God divided us so that we can see that we can only be united through him. The end. So I think it's so very important that when we're talking about these, you know, divides in terms of ethnicity, that we are talking about Jesus first. Because if we're not pursuing unity and equality in Jesus, then there's no point of talking about it. We're shouting about our blackness, blackity, black, but then God's not shouting about our blackness. I know a lot of churches, especially like these kind of white evangelical kind of reformed churches, are talking about how, you know, God is colorblind. God does not see race. Yeah, you're right. God does not see race. He sees the nations that he creates. He sees ethnicity. And you know what? Even if God was colorblind, he's not blind to injustice. God does not look at injustice and go, yeah,
it's good.
Great. You know what I mean? So even if he doesn't see color, he sees injustice. And so you should be fighting against injustice of that divides people because of their color. If God is so colorblind, then why are you just sitting on the sidelines and seeing people being, you know, ostracized because of their color? Like people's arguments towards not addressing racism makes no sense. It makes no sense. And you know what, there was another Bible verse, I think is in Deuteronomy. You know, God talks about how he doesn't show partiality, and obviously people use this Bible verse, but when you read on in that Bible verse, let me even find it, because I think it was really well said. Deuteronomy, I think 10. But I was just reading it, I was just like, whoa. Like I just don't understand where people get these like notions, and like
Deuteronomy 10:17-19.
Yeah, 10:17. Yeah. So if you look at verse 18, it says that, no, I'll start from 17. So it says, for the Lord your God is the God of gods and the Lord of lords, the great God, mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality and accepts no bribes. People end there. But if we read the next verse, it says, he defends the cause of the fatherless and the widow and loves the foreigner residing among you, giving them food and clothing. Okay, God shows no partiality, but we can see here that he defends those who are you know, who people aren't defending. You know, he talks of the fatherless and the widow. And what does he also talk about? The foreigner, which also, are we not people living in a foreign land? The UK isn't our land. We are foreigners. And it says that the Lord defends us. So when people are talking about, oh, you know, God shows no impartiality, yeah, he doesn't. But he also defends the foreigner, and he defends the widow and the fatherless. God is defending those who are looked at as outcasts from the beginning of time. So we need to kind of stop. Anyways, I was just being very frustrated about a lot of these, you know, especially Christian pastors, white pastors, talking about, guys, we know we need to address, you know, the wickedness of man and not cause divide between us. Yes, we shouldn't cause divide, but me saying Black Lives Matter and me addressing racial issues isn't me trying to cause divide. It's me trying to cause unity. Is me trying to call for equality. Is me trying to call out injustice so that there can be some form of reconciliation. So I think we need to just kind of, you know, dispel these myths of race. Like it's so crazy because they call us black and white. White people aren't white. Black people aren't black. I'm brown. My skin color is brown. If you were going to draw me with a color pencil, you wouldn't use black to draw me. You'd use a brown color pencil to color me in. White people aren't white. Hold a piece of paper next to a white person. They are not white. You know, that they're a mixture of different hues, like pinky, yellowy, you know. So, but why choose these terms? Black and white are polar opposites of each other. You know, even if you look at light, white light is, you know, if you know about the like white is yellow, I think pink and cyan light put together. When you put all those colors together, it gives you white light. And then black is when all of light is absorbed. What you can see is black and white can't exist in the same place or room. You either have white light or you have blackness. You can't mix the two. They are polar opposites. So why would they choose to call us black and call themselves white? They're trying to cause a divide, put us at one side of the spectrum and them at the other side, and show that there is no reconciliation. But really, look at us. I'm brown. Do you know why I'm brown? Because of melanin. I'm brown because my parents are from Ghana, which is near the equator. And so we need more melanin to stop us from getting skin cancer. You know, some people are white because they originate from, you know, the north, where there is less sunshine. And so the type of melanin in their skin provides them with more vitamin D so that they don't get vitamin D deficient. So our ethnicities and the way our skin has evolved, we know about natural selection. If certain people live in a certain area and, you know, the genes are favorable, then people in that area start to pass that gene on in generations. That's why people's colors have changed. But we all know we originate from Adam and Eve. So it's just, I just don't understand why people can, first of all, believe that white people are more superior than black people, and try and use science to back that up. There is no such thing. And anything that's scientifical and outside of what God has said about his people is ultimately false. I don't care how much evidence you have for it. If it's not what God has said over the lives of people, then ultimately it's false. So your evidence just must be, I don't know what evidence is, but it's false. Something's wrong there. But yeah, I don't know. This was kind of a rant, sorry. But I just wanted to dispel myths. Like, race is not a thing. God did not make race. He made ethnicities. You know, he made cultures that, you know, ultimately when he unifies us all, we'll be singing to him one song, different tongues. And he just, you know, it shows the kind of the beauty of the gospel, how God can reconcile many nations back onto himself, and not just, you know, the Jews and the Israelites, but the Gentiles who include all other nations. So yeah, that's that's me.
Anybody who want to add anything else? You know the thing for me is it's the politics that people try to play, and the political discussions that people try to have that acts as a discussion and as a distraction. And especially as Christians, I find it really disingenuous when you take the political route in order to deal with this issue, because it's really not political. There's actually people involved here. So just because of wherever you line politically, you now have a viewpoint that you can't seem to address people with, and your viewpoint should be the gospel. That should inform your viewpoint, not your politics. So people, start reading your Bible. That's a good start.
Yeah. So I think let's sorry, let's round off. We'll do like a list, like a list of like just a summary of everything we've said, things that people can take away and do and change things in their environments. Okay, so I will start off with number 1. God didn't make race, he made ethnicities. And to dispel all the things that's going on right now, you need to understand why God created ethnicities, why he chose to not only save Jews, but everyone back onto himself. And I think from there, understanding humanity from a biblical point of view, and basically, you know, ethnicity and nations from biblical point of view, we can now go from there. So number 1, God didn't make race, he made ethnicity, and teaching yourself and others that.
Well, I guess I'll go next. In these times, especially as people try to find reconciliation, I guess from our side of things, we need to extend grace, but also on the people that want to learn, it's going to be hard work. So obviously there's the confessing part, the forgiveness part, the peacemaking part. You just have to be intentional about what you want to learn. You have to be intentional in listening, extending invites, meeting up with that friend about coffee, meeting up with that friend that you thought was always ranting or rambling on, and actually listening. And if you're Christian, especially open the Bible together and really see that the love that God has for us is for all of us, not just a specific people. So if you see that some people are hurting and some people aren't well off, then you help them. Don't just talk about it. Put your money where your mouth is, and your labor, to help with justice.
Good.
Good.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll say, I think if church was a relationship status, it would be complicated.
Yeah.
I think when you're fighting for injustices within a church and there are other members that are against that, that's really hard. I think as Christians, we need to model inclusivity, and we need to have the same approach that Jesus took to stand up for injustices. And we need the Holy Spirit to do that. I believe in the Holy Spirit. That's kind of part of my day-to-day life. And it says that the Holy Spirit gives us peace and joy and patience and kindness and understanding and faithfulness and gentleness and self-control. Otherwise we become hateful, and it's really hard to love other people when you really don't want to love them. And I believe that Jesus is building a diverse, rich and beautiful church, where the only thing we have in common is Jesus. That's what I want to look to. And I think if we are a Christ-centered family who are empowered by the Holy Spirit, we can be pushed towards transformation. And it's really hard, and it takes effort, and it takes time, but I would encourage those who are allies who are listening, that you need to do the work. It's not something that can be spoon-fed to you. Like Yasmin said, there is so much stuff out there, and if you look for it, you will find it. But you have to do the work. And we are all working, and we are all trying to make this place a better place. And it's really hard, and it's really difficult, and it's tough, and it's heavy, and it is on our shoulders. But like, remember, God takes our burdens. And it's a fight, it's a battle, but I believe that God is yelling and is on our side and is shouting with us, and pushing us forward. So that's kind of what I would say.
It's really good, Nat. You've all said amazing things that I totally agree with as well. And I feel like just my last things that I would say would be about being proactive in your community. Go and speak to your MP, see what things are going on, see how you can help, how you can use your voice if there's things that are going on that are unjust, check in with your MPs. They're always, my experience with mine is she's always willing to speak. Find out about the organisations, not that are just online, not that are just in America, even though it's amazing to help. Find out the organisations that are grassroots, that are local, that are close to you. In your local church, there should be some charities that they're even supporting. Again, this is just for the everyday people as well. Not everybody is going to go and do a law course. Not everyone's going to go and be an activist. Not everybody. So, I want people to be able to do things, using what they have and doing what they can. And it might not necessarily look like hundreds and hundreds of pounds. It could even be voluntary work, maybe once a month, or, those kind of things. So just to see what is going on in your community that you could actually help, or even if you are based somewhere in your community that or of a charity and you think actually our church could support that charity, or I work in a place where there's a lot of people coming in and out, I could get flyers for this charity and put it here, like we could be a representative for this cause or organization. So sometimes it's just about looking at what you have around you and where you can be of best service, and again using your voice in those spaces at your church when you can. And I already said earlier about if you're an influencer, if you're working, but I've already said those things. And again, like Nat said, education, there's many books, there's many free resources. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah. I just wanted to add, sorry, 1 second. I just wanted to add, like, as you were saying, if you're approaching, you know, if you're, let's say today or this week, your pastor hasn't been adequate in the way that they've maybe addressed the situation, I'd say approaching them, but with grace and with love and with the word, and just, you know, letting them know how you feel and how the situation has made you feel and how you maybe feel that they could have addressed it better. And also voting for people who will be change makers in your communities, and stuff like that. I know a lot of people abstain from voting because their voice won't make a difference, but guys, we need to vote. We need to be voting people into positions of power and authority where you know, our voices can ultimately be heard. And there was one more thing I had, but I think I was going to say supporting, you know, businesses and corporations that speak out for us and support us, and I don't say boycotting, but trying not to support corporations and businesses that, you know, support, you know, racism and other social injustice issues, and trying to support, as you said, grassroots and grass level businesses, especially, you know, black businesses, and to help them grow, so, you know, they can be in positions where they're helping to fund, you know, these kind of things, and they're helping to give people scholarships so that they can get out of whatever. So yeah, I'd say also that, I think that's all I got.
Right, guys,
stay prayed up.
Yes, and stay prayed up. So
prayed up, man.
With that, we are going to end the episode. Hopefully this has been helpful to you guys. And yeah, man, keep on fighting, keep on praying. Yeah. There's work to be done. We're talking about it, but we need to actually put action into it. So yeah, make sure you follow us on our socials. Second Nature Pod on Twitter, Second Nature Pod _pod on Instagram, and make sure you follow Yasmin and Natalie. Do you guys want to give your socials out?
I'm _ Yasmin Elizabeth and pick me up in UK.
Yeah, and I'm at Everyday Racism _
Right. And, you know, we're going to do the usual thing that we do. With that, I say peace.
Love.
Happiness.
And power.
And all things there. Bye.
Bye.